Hi kids, how are you doing? This is Lisa Peck from the Center for Medical Science here at Shorecrest. I wanted to go over some of the organs of our body systems using this model here. This is just an introduction looking at some of the systems and some of the major organs involved. With the nervous system, the major organ here is going to be the brain, and then all the nerves that extend out of it and go to the entire body. It's a communication system and a control system of the body. It has many sensory organs along with it, such as the eye, taste for tongue, smelling, olfaction for smell, feeling, and hearing. Another body system is the skeletal system. We'll be learning all these systems quite in depth. And the skeletal system consists of 206 bones that are used to support the body, protect organs, to make blood, a process called hematopoiesis, which takes place in the epiphysis of bones and spongy red bone marrow of flat bones as well, the ribs and hips, etc. It is a strong structure. They have lots of processes, etc., that they use to connect. They're connected via cartilage as part of the skeletal system, and the cartilage is going to help hold it together. Another major body system is the muscular system. You can see some of the muscles here. The muscular system helps in movement. It also helps to generate heat. It has a little bit of protective function as well, but its main thing is to help with movement. If it's skeletal muscle, it's going to move the bones. It's attached to bones, forming a series of fulcrums and levers. It is tendons that attach to the bone. So tendons are part of the muscular system, and cartilage and ligaments are part of the skeletal system. And if it is cardiac muscle tissue, it's going to be used to pump and move blood through the heart. And if it is smooth muscle, remember, forms kind of spindle-shaped forms sheets, circular and longitudinal, which go around tubes and tracts and help move stuff through those tubes and tracts, such as those of the respiratory, digestive, and urogenital systems, as well as blood vessels. All right, so that's the muscular system. So we discussed the nervous system, the skeletal system, and the muscular system. The largest organ of the body is this here, is the skin or the integumentary system. It has a bunch of major functions. One of them is to protect us from all sorts of insults that can come against the body, mechanical, chemical, biological, like parasites, bacteria, viruses. It keeps us from drying out. It protects us from UV radiation that would damage the DNA in our skin, and helps with thermoregulation, a lot with thermoregulation. So that's the skin or the integumentary system. The respiratory system involves the air going through either the nasal passage, turn this just a little bit, through the nasal passage here, and then coming down through the nasal pharynx to the back, to the oral pharynx, the back, or through the mouth here, and coming back down to the laryngopharynx. And then the air is going to pass through the epiglottis, which is a kind of protective flap that covers the opening of the trachea. The very beginning of the trachea here is going to be where our vocal cords are. So we call that the larynx. Remember, la, 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 larynx. So the vocal cords are going to be in there. So we're going to have the pharynx, and then the larynx, and then see these cartilaginous rings? You can actually feel them here. That's going to be your trachea. So your trachea is going to be here. Your trachea is going to branch off via some bronchial tubes. Let me see if I can remove. These are your lungs. They're lobed. They're lateral to the heart. And you can see these trachea is going to bisect or bifurcate into the bronchial tubes. And as the bronchial tubes branch off and get smaller and smaller and smaller, you can see it's a bronchial tree or respiratory tree. We call these bronchioles. And the very end of these are going to end in little bulbous sacs here, which are called alveoli. And each alveoli, the lining is only about 1 cell thick, and there's a capillary bed going around it for, let me move a little closer, for the exchange of gases. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are going to be exchanged here. So the function of the respiratory system is to put oxygen into the blood and remove carbon dioxide from the blood. The system that's in charge, well here, The system that is in charge of moving the blood and circulating blood is called the cardiovascular system. Cardio consisting of the heart and vascular consisting of all the blood vessels. There are a bunch of major blood vessels. The aorta leaves the heart, the left side of the heart, and it branches off into arteries, which get smaller into arterioles, which then go to capillary beds. And then the capillary beds are going to join up into smaller veins called venules, and small venules will join up to create veins, and eventually we'll have the vena cava coming back into the right side of the heart. The major job or function is to deliver oxygen and nutrients to all the body systems, to all the tissue, delivering hormones as well, and all sorts of substances that are needed for metabolism. And then it removes nitrogen waste from tissues from the breakdown of amino acids and proteins. And also it's going to remove carbon dioxide, which is a byproduct from aerobic respiration. So this job here is to deliver stuff and remove stuff from the body tissues, right? So that's the cardiovascular system. So we have the respiratory system here, the two lungs that are lateral to the heart's medial, and the cardiovascular system. We have another system, which is our digestive system, which is very important and quite complex. When we get into it, you'll see it's quite complex. There are a bunch of major organs and then accessory organs. The major organs are going to be the oral cavity, and then coming down from the oral cavity is the esophagus. See the esophagus, this tube, maybe you can't see it, there it is. You can see this tube running behind the trachea. It's a flexible tube that usually is collapsed until food's going in it. Uses a process called peristalsis to move food from here down into the stomach. So this is a soft tube that connects the back of the throat, the pharynx, down to the stomach. This is called the diaphragm. And this diaphragm, this big domed upside down, looks like an umbrella. This big muscle here separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominopelvic cavity. Okay, so this is the thoracic cavity up here that has the heart and the lungs and the trachea and the esophagus, separated by the diaphragm here, this diaphragm. This is the abdominopelvic, which contains all the other organs. As I start to remove this big domed organ called the liver, this is an accessory organ for the digestive system. It creates something called bile that helps emulsify fats, and it's stored here in the gallbladder, or it will be directly dumped into the digestive system to help emulsify fats. That's the liver. It also has about 400 other metabolic functions, including it helps kind of recycle old blood cells. They only live about 120 days. It helps with a lot of nutrients that are absorbed from the digestive system. They come here first to be kind of fixed so our body can actually use them. From the esophagus, coming through the this hiatus, this hole here in the diaphragm. Have you heard of a hiatal hernia? There's a hole here. You can actually see that esophagus is coming out from. It enters the stomach. The stomach is a big J-shaped pouch. It has lots of ridges in it that allow it to stretch and expand. And each area of the stomach has its own name. The stomach itself then, after the food moves through here and is mechanically and chemically broken down, it starts to enter the beginning of the small intestines. Now the most proximal end of the small intestine is called the duodenum. And the duodenum here, a whole bunch of digestive enzymes get dumped in from the pancreas. See the pancreas here? You know this is a gland because it's all bumpy. Glands are usually depicted as being bumpy, and when you dissect an organism and find glands, you could see them because they're actually very bumpy. So the liver here and the pancreas are accessory organs. We have the duodenum, which is the beginning of the small intestine. Then we have the jejunum, and then we have the ileum. Now what's interesting is the small intestine is actually longer than the large intestine, but in diameter it's much smaller. That's how it got its name. So we have the small intestines here, jejunum and ileum, and from here is the ileocecal valve, and it comes into the large intestine or the colon. The very end here is called the cecum, and hanging from the cecum, I have to flip this around. I'll show you in a minute when I pull this out. But hanging from the cecum is going to be the entrance here. This is going to be the appendix. So this is the cecum. This is the very beginning of the large intestine. This is called the ileocecal valve, where the ileum, small intestine, dumps into the large intestine. And then we classify the rest of the parts of the large intestine quite brilliantly. We have the ascending colon, the transverse, remember T, transverse cuts across, the descending colon. And when I remove this and turn it around, so you can see, here, this part here, see how it kind of looks like an S? This is the sigmoid colon. So we're going from the descending colon into the sigmoid colon and then into the rectum, which is going to be kind of a storage reservoir for the feces until it's filled up, and then we'll void from there. Oh, also then, this is that little blind pouch hanging from the beginning of the large intestine. This is the appendix here. And then the food will get voided out of from the rectum here out of the anus. Okay? So the major organs of the digestive system is the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, duodenum. Then we go into, from the duodenum, the jejunum, the ileum, all of the small intestine, into the large intestine, the cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, then into the rectum, and then the anus for voiding. All right? So that's the digestive system. The pancreas and the liver are accessory organs, as are salivary glands here. The salivary glands are going to help out, and our teeth. Okay? I'm going to remove this pancreas. Now notice there's a big organ at the tail end here, of the pancreas. This is called the spleen. The spleen. The spleen helps also with the breakdown of old blood cells. It has some extra red blood cells. If we are bleeding out, we need some extra blood cells. It also has an immune function as well. So we have one spleen. It's not a bilateral symmetrical organ. One spleen, and it's at the tail end of the pancreas. The pancreas points to it. So it's off here onto the left side of the body. We have our urinary system, or our excretory system, which consists of two kidneys. These are in the lumbar posterior area of the body. We have two kidneys, paired kidneys. They're going to filtrate out the blood and get out electrolytes and some ions, etc. They'll get rid of, here, I'll show you the filtrate. So blood is going to go through some of the cortex here, and there's going to be these little filtration, little units called nephridia or nephrons, where the blood is going to, stuff that needs to be left, like the metabolic waste, the nitrogenous waste, is going to be pushed, into the kidneys, which will all be filtered out eventually. Each one of these little pyramids will filter out the urine here, which will exit now. Put this back in here. Two tubes. There are two of them. These are called ureters. And you know, ureters is U-R-E-T-E-R-S. There are two E's, so there's two ureters. So once again, the urinary system. We have two kidneys. They're going to filter out the blood, removing metabolic waste, nitrogen waste called urea, and make it more tolerable for the body, creating urine. It's going to exit, then this urine is going to exit via the two ureters. And the two ureters then are going to join in the urinary bladder. In the urinary bladder, it's going to be hard to get this thing right here. In the urinary bladder here, and then void it out. Excuse me. The reproductive system consists of, if it's a female, it's going to consist of the ovaries and fallopian tubes, which are going to join into a small muscular area called the uterus, which eventually, the uterus here is going to empty into the vagina, which is going to exit out of the body. So for female reproductive system, we have the ovaries here, which also are endocrine. They secrete hormones as well. So they're endocrine and reproductive. Fallopian tube. Here's the uterus and the vagina. For the male, the male reproductive system is going to consist of the testicles that are going to be inside a scrotal sac. These are what are producing the sperm, and the proteins, especially in the flagella, start to get denatured, get broken down by our body heat. So we have evolved to have the testicles evolve outside of the body, and they're held in a scrotal sac so that the body temperature doesn't degrade and cause the sperm to become non-functional. There are some glands that are involved with helping to create the semen. There is an epididymal gland. There is a prostate gland. Let's see if I can show you that here. So in the male, the urinary bladder's here. So you would have those, remember the kidneys, the ureters going to urinary bladder. And then the last tube is called the urethra that thrusts the urine out. So once again, the urinary system, you have two kidneys. Here, two kidneys. You have two ureters. And then you're going to have the urinary bladder. That's a big stretchy bladder. And then the urethra that will thrust. It's a single one that will thrust the, sorry, this is magnetic, that will thrust the urine out. All right. Get this back here. I'm going to do the reproductive system again. Crud. Oh, I'm trying to do this too fast. Okay. For the reproductive system, the female reproductive system consists of some major organs. First major organ are going to be a paired ovaries here on this side. Now the ovaries here are going to have two functions. They're going to create the eggs, but they're also going to be endocrine in function. They're going to secrete some hormones. So they belong to two body systems, the ovaries. Then you're going to have the fallopian tubes. So the eggs are going to be released here and come down the fallopian tubes, which are going to join in this muscular area here, which is the uterus. Okay. So we come down into the uterus, and then exiting from the uterus, here is the cervix, and then we have the vagina here. Okay. If it's a male reproductive system, the male reproductive system here is going to consist of the testicles. The testicles are going to be housed in a scrotal sac. The testicles' job is twofold. One is reproductive, to make sperm, but the other one is also an endocrine function, just like the ovaries, to secrete hormones. So they belong to two body systems. And when the sperm is generated, the sperm has a lot of protein, especially in the flagella, and the body heat, our body heat, 37 degrees Celsius, or 98.6 Fahrenheit, is too hot. It starts to denature the proteins. So the body has evolved to have the testicles outside of the body core in a scrotal sac, which decreases that temperature, so rendering the sperm still functional. There are some glands that secrete and help create the ejaculate that allows the sperm to move in. There's going to be something called the epididymal gland. There's going to be something called the prostate gland. Now the prostate is here, and it's going to secrete a neutralizer, an alkaline solution that kind of neutralizes the acidity of the vagina so that it doesn't hurt the, oh shoot. Oh, rats. No.